So, in this lecture, let me give you a little bit of poetry, a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of Aristotle. Since the love of Rockefeller's grifter remedies of Rockefeller's father, for the love of gasoline, over 150 years of atrocities, of genocidically, the Arabs have been genocide over 100 million and counting. For the greed of one nation, for the greed of one nation's currency. Now Syria is being pivoted towards Turkey. If Erdogan leans too much towards Putin, the Pentagon would tilt the caliphates just in order to sway the float of gasoline into Europe for the mighty dollar. Next up on the chopping block of genocide will be Turkey's populations, genocidically warmongered for the love of one nation's greed, for the love of one nation's currency. And we're only at peak oil. We only halfway through these atrocities. There's plenty more human beings to be genocide for the love of oil, for the love of greed, for the love of one nation. Venezuela, how many Latinos will die to covet the oil of Venezuela? For the love of greed, for the love of money, for the love of one nation's currency. The mighty, mighty dollar. Don't forget about Iran. You're the next chopping blocks of revolutions. For the love of greed, for the love of one nation's currency. So let me stop my poetry, my Aristotle, my philosophies, concluded there with my poetry. Now let me start talking analytic intel. See, when we invaded Iraq, we used the intel of Valerie Plame and Joe Wilson, and we outed Scooter Libby for telling the truth, that there was no yellow cake to be found in order for Saddam Hussein to create nuclear bombs. But we used it. The Bush used the intel to wag the tail and to invade Iraq for the second time. His father invaded because of Kuwait oil, and Bush invaded for Iraqi oil. But then the CIA and the Pentagon created the Axis of Evil list in order to covet the rest of the oil of OPEC. So we spread the caliphate by chasing these ragtag terror cells, because America doesn't want to be toppling nations themselves, but they chase these terror cells in directions, like they guide them like shepherds. While they running scared away from the Pentagon, we like a compass, and a shepherd, we guide these terror cells, ragtag terror cells, into regions, like the caliphate from Iraq into Syria. And then, since we don't want to be known on the world stage by toppling sovereign Arab nations, we allow these ragtag terror cells to terrorize the nations in an uprising, in a civil war. So the Arab people think that they're liberating themselves in Libya and Syria. And then right after they topple their leaders like Gaddafi and Assad, we step in and bombard them, like we're doing in Syria right now with America and Israel and Turkey. But see, even Turkey can be the next one up on the chopping block with Erdogan, because he leans too much to Russia. So America's mighty dollars might try to spread the caliphate into Turkey in order to spread freedom, because they might accuse Erdogan of being a dictatorial ruler. And they might try to repeat the same thing to spread freedom into Turkey if Erdogan leans too much towards Russia. So America wants to flood petrodollars from Syria into Western Europe and control it with Exxon. So I feel as an analytical analyst of the shadows, one that is good when it comes to evaluating CIA reports, that Turkey Erdogan might be the next one up on the chopping block. And since we don't want to be known in the Pentagon for overthrowing sovereign Arab nations and their leaders, we guide these terror cells. When they run scared from the Pentagon, we shepherd them into directions like a compass. They run exactly where we want them to run because they're scared running away from the Pentagon. And so the next one, now you got Turkey, Erdogan, and America and Israel bombarding a day or two after Assad was toppled to take away HTS. And we guide them from the caliphate into Syria, ISIS. And we conned our way with HTS, letting them think that they were going to govern Syria. But in reality, a day or two later, America and Israel started bombarding the gas refinery plants, and we're pushing all the way, and we're going to push ISIS, and HTS scared them. The Pentagon is going to bombard them, and they're going to run up towards Turkey. And then they're going to try to topple Assad, Erdogan, the same way they did Assad. And America doesn't want to be known for this, so we blame it on ISIS. We blame it on Al-Qaeda or the caliphates. We didn't want to topple Gaddafi directly because it would seem like America is the oil imperial power that's toppling Iraq, Syria, Libya, maybe Turkey, maybe Iran, maybe Venezuela. So we depend on excuses. And the perfect excuse is to hide behind ragtag terrorist cells groups. We can terrorize them and then let them do the dirty work for us while we stay in the background. As soon as they overthrow their leaders, we jump in. We start bombarding, saying, oh, we're spreading freedoms and liberties and justice for all. But we use these scared terror ragtag organizations. When they run away from our Pentagons, we chase them into the territories we want them to go into. And then those nations, Arabs, think that they're liberating themselves from their leaders, like Assad and Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein. And then when they overthrow their leaders and have their little short party of freedoms that last maybe a day or two, that's what lasted with Gaddafi and now Assad, because we're bombarding them with Israel and America. And it's not Israel's fault, because Israel is also imprisoned under this Egyptian pyramid that y'all call the mighty dollar. They should know how to feel imprisoned, the Israelites, under a pyramid. Or a Ponzi American scheme, that is Anglo-Saxons. So I'm getting back a little bit too much into poetry, ain't I? Let me keep it as an analytic advisor within the United Nations. So Assad was leaning a little bit towards Putin. So now America wants to chase these ragtag extremists, Wahhabists, terror cells, HTS, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. We want to chase these scared ragtag groups, the Pentagon does. And we want to pressure Netanyahu, because Netanyahu he's going to prosecution. So he's desperate for America's relief to not be tossed into jail, because Netanyahu wants to stay out of jail. So we're bombarding a day or two after Assad fell. Well, now we've got to stabilize freedoms and liberties. The same excuse. When we chased the Brotherhood out of power out of Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood, we chased Al-Qaeda into Libya in order for Gaddafi to be overthrown. And then we stepped in with France to colonize the OPEC members in North Africa. So Sarkozy, with the French oil interest company, started bombarding Gaddafi, with America ordering it, in order to chase oil OPEC members in North Africa. And see, one nation overall. We're halfway through peak oil, and already hundreds of millions of Arabs has died in genocidal wars for the love of oil. Now, no other nation on earth, no other people, no other human beings has died for a raw material on this planet. Not for copper, not for iron, not for diamonds. Nobody has died that much as people have died in genocidal wars. Mainly the Arabs at this point. Hundreds of millions of them, ever since 150 years of gasoline. Close to 150 years of gasoline. The Arabs has been genocide. 100 million Arabs have perished. And it's only peak oil. It's only peak oil. So we're only halfway through the genocide of one nation controlling the world order. For the love of that pyramid Ponzi scheme. Ask Netanyahu and the Jews, do they love to be enslaved underneath a pyramid? For the love of one nation's greed, called the greenbacks. And it's Angloed, by the way, is Angloed. But now, we're pushing the caliphate, the Pentagon is, towards Turkey, in the hopes that we can overthrow Erdogan as the next dictator to deliver and liberate the Turkish citizens, supposedly. Operation Freedom, probably. Like we did when we overthrew and hanged Saddam Hussein and tortured people in Baghdad. Because Erdogan was leaning too close to Russia. So now America wants to control the petrodollar, this one nation overall, over the world. Because all these wars that's been fought for the greenback, have no doubt. Since 150 years of this gasoline, Britain and America has genocided the Middle East since the beginning of oil. The discovery of oil. So, now they're pivoting towards Turkey. If Erdogan leans too much to Russia, they will chase the Pentagon and the CIA, would chase ISIS and the caliphates. And you gotta understand, they're running scared. ISIS and the caliphates, they're ragtag compared to the Western allies and their armies. They're ragtagged. They're scared, ragtag terror cells. But we use them to our advantage to shepherd them in the direction we want the petrodollar to go. Like a compass, a North Star compass. We know how to, Pentagonically, in the CIA and the Foreign Relations Committees in the Pentagon, and in the Services Arms Committees and Senate and Congress in Washington, we know how to pivot these terror cells to run away from us in the right direction. Because we don't want to topple nations, sovereign nations, leaders, and make it seem like we're all about the petrodollar. So we make it seem like it's a war on terror. To spread freedoms. So when these same terror cells, we guide them into the direction we want them to head in, where they can cause chaos and civil wars in those Arab nations, we stand by and let it fester for years. These terror cells, we let them rip up the civilities in these regions and these nations, these Arab nations. And then when the point that we want to strike, that's when we move in for the kill. Like we did Saddam Hussein, like we did Gaddafi, like we did Assad. He fled, so he got off without being slaughtered. But 2 days later, when he fled to Russia, now, you gotta understand, the Western news, they clap all this type of activities. Oh, we developing and delivering freedoms to Iraq. And we hanged Saddam Hussein. And then we created the caliphate directions for them to run scared into Syria. And then we let it fester for decades. And to Syria was razed to ruins. And now when the time is right to swipe in, the CIA and the Pentagon starts to bombard 2 days after Assad steps down. But if you listen to Western news, when HTS was delivering freedoms, the Western news was like clapping and cheering them on. Like, oh my Lord, we're finally seeing the freedoms comes to Syria. The same way we did Gaddafi. After 2 days, we started bombarding and driving Gaddafi into a sewer hole to covet the oil. But we pushed the caliphate into that direction in order to reap havoc the CIA and the Pentagon has. We did it in Iraq, we did it in Syria, we did it in Libya, and now we're aiming for Turkey. Because America doesn't want Erdogan to lean towards Russia as a NATO member. So now the CIA and the Pentagon is leaning towards chasing HTS and the Caliphate and Al-Qaeda into Turkish borders. Just as long as Turkey is not willing to go along with the game, we'll make an excuse why he's been a dictator for so long. And the same story repeats itself. And then we're disposed, or we're coming for the swoop in. Like, Assad went to Russia, and then 2 days later we swooped in to stabilize freedoms by chasing HTS away towards Turkey. And America, CIA, the Senate, Foreign Relations Committee, the Services Arms Committee, the Ways and Means Committees, behind closed doors, America plots on the direction of how to chase these scared terror cells, these ragtag individual terror cells. We shepherd them into the directions we want them to go in. And since Erdogan was leaning too much towards Putin, Erdogan is the next one up. And so America ordered Netanyahu. Netanyahu's a flunky that's going right now. He's going to court to stay out of there for bribery. So he's desperate for America's weapons. He's desperate for America clemency when it comes to the World Hague. So the Egyptians, including Netanyahu, know what it is to be enslaved underneath a pyramid, right? Or may I say the Egyptians, the Israelites know what is enslavement. But it's just an Anglo greenback enslavement for the Zionist under this Anglo blood of America. So the Israelites know what it is to be enslaved in Egypt, and when it comes to America's Anglo power on the world stage, this one nation, this Anglo nation. And so Netanyahu takes orders. So when Assad stepped down, 2 days later, America ordered Israel to start to bombard Assad, not Assad, Syria, gas refineries. And now America swooped in to bombard and assist Israel jet fighters bombarding Syria's to push ISIS, or when I say HTS, now they're going to run scared. And America and the CIA and the Pentagon are going to shepherd them towards Turkey, in the hopes that they will be the next ones to experience American freedoms. And we're only going through peak oil. So we have like 100 more years to go of genocidal wars with this one power of one nation's currencies. Not to mention how many people are going to die for the coveted oil in Venezuela. How many Colombians, Venezuelans, Brazilians, when America start pivoting for their oil, or Iran's oil, or yet OPEC members in North Africa. We're only through peak oil. So there's 100 years to go of genocidal wars. There's never been a commodity on earth that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of human beings have been genocide by one nation. By one nation. And one nation's currency. There's never been a commodity on earth that human beings, hundreds and hundreds of human beings, have been genocided by one nation and one nation's currencies. And we're just getting started because it's peak oil. So we got another 100 years of genocide. 100 more years of genocide. How many more 100 human beings will die for this oil? There's never been a commodity like this that people have died. Not copper, not iron, not bronze. There's never been a commodity on earth that has been genocidally killing hundreds of human beings. Hundreds and hundreds of human beings. By one nation and one nation's currency. And not to mention the planet being destroyed and choked off by one nation and one nation's currency.